Breaking news today. The FBI has reportedly deployed 1,000 agents to sift through 100,000 files linked to Epstein, specifically flagging any that mention Trump. Is this a legitimate pursuit of justice or merely a politically motivated witch hunt targeting a familiar figure?
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
MSNBC reports a significant revelation. A senator claims the FBI was ordered to flag Epstein records mentioning President Trump. Let's consider the implications. The FBI, an institution expected to remain apolitical, allegedly directed 1,000 agents to sift through 100,000 Epstein files, searching specifically for mentions of Trump and disregarding the rest. This raises a critical question. Is this pursuit of justice or a targeted political maneuver against an unpopular figure? Would the scenario be the same if the names involved were Biden or Harris? Unlikely. During the previous Democratic administration, there were accusations of federal agencies being used to suppress opposition, while scandals within their ranks seemingly vanished. Meanwhile, the same media outlets that downplayed scandals involving the Clintons and Bidens are now highlighting any involvement by Trump, even as the Department of Justice lacks transparency, heavily redacting documents that could implicate their allies. Why do we continue to allow unaccountable elites, both domestic and international, to control what the American public knows? Why is selective disclosure accepted, and why do these revelations consistently align with a globalist agenda that seems to undermine our sovereignty, our elections, and those who challenge the status quo? If we truly value the truth, we should demand the release of every Epstein file, unredacted and without manipulation. Justice should not be used as a partisan tool, and the American people deserve full disclosure, not another politically driven spectacle. Buckle up, folks.
But first, the Department of Justice filed a motion to unseal grand jury information from both the case of late child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein and his associate, currently in federal prison,
The Department of Justice's recent initiative to unseal grand jury records from the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases is being presented as a victory for transparency. The reality is more complex and concerning for those who value true accountability. While the department cites public interest, the promised extensive redactions will not only protect victims, which is justified, but also obscure the identities of potentially influential figures. This vague approach means that despite headlines heralding historic disclosures, the public is likely to encounter a heavily edited version missing crucial details. Also, the FBI's internal practices have raised significant concerns. The directive for approximately 1,000 agents to specifically flag documents mentioning President Trump, while neglecting similar figures, suggests a politicized agenda. This is a departure from the impartial justice system Americans expect, appearing to prioritize political appearances over genuine fairness. Senator Dick Durbin's worries about agents' lack of expertise with sensitive victim information underscore the impression of a disorganized effort more focused on managing perceptions than administering justice. Additionally, the DOJ's recent assertion that no further charges are warranted seems implausible, considering the extensive documentation and long-standing patterns of elite protection observed in this case. The mainstream media, particularly outlets like MSNBC, often highlight aspects that could embarrass the current Republican administration, while downplaying the bipartisan nature of Epstein's connections, including ties to Democratic donors, Hollywood celebrities, and former President Bill Clinton. This selective reporting contributes to the erosion of trust in both the media and federal institutions, as it clearly displays a double standard. Despite the gravity of the situation, calls for a special prosecutor have been summarily rejected by the White House. If the DOJ genuinely acknowledges this issue as a national disgrace, restoring public trust demands the appointment of an independent investigator empowered to pursue the evidence impartially. Anything less will likely be perceived as yet another cover-up by elite interests who have manipulated events from behind the scenes for decades. Americans deserve the complete truth about Epstein's network, beyond what is politically expedient for those currently in power. This issue goes beyond any single administration or party. It reflects a corrupt system that shields its own at the cost of justice and transparency. Without full disclosure of every involved party and their connections, the cloud of suspicion will only continue to expand.
The top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which of course oversees the FBI and the Department of Justice, now says that the Bureau agents were instructed to flag to DOJ about any Epstein records that mention Donald Trump. Get this is a new letter out today to Attorney General Pam Bondi from Ranking Member Dick Durbin, who writes this, quote, "According to information my office received, you pressured the FBI to put approximately 1,000 personnel in its information management division on 24-hour shifts to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records, adding, quote, "My office was told these personnel were instructed to flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned." What? And all this comes just a day after that shocking story in the Wall Street Journal about what the paper described as a, quote, bawdy birthday letter bearing Trump's signature written to Epstein back in 2003 before his first arrest. Quoting from the Journal's description, the letter bearing Trump's name, which was reviewed by the Journal, is bawdy, like others in the album.
Directing approximately 1,000 FBI agents to sift through 100,000 Epstein-related records, focusing solely on mentions of Donald Trump, exemplifies the politicization of federal law enforcement resources. And this is not merely about procedural errors, it's about skewed priorities. When the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee exposes that agents were instructed to specifically flag references to Trump without similar scrutiny being applied to other high-profile figures, it underscores the lack of impartiality in these agencies. The American public is justified in questioning whether the goal was to uncover the truth or to generate headlines that embarrass the current administration. The Department of Justice's approach to transparency is equally selective. Promises of extensive redactions in the unsealing of grand jury records, coupled with the timing and scope of these disclosures, suggest a deliberate effort to control the narrative rather than ensure accountability. And the refusal to release the majority of seized electronic devices, flight logs, and interview records, while publicly unsealing certain transcripts, further fuels suspicions that the system is designed to shield the powerful rather than expose them. This issue goes beyond party lines, yet media coverage predominantly focuses on Trump, overlooking Epstein's connections with prominent Democratic donors, Hollywood elites, and the previous administration. This pattern is consistent. Mainstream media outlets like MSNBC and the Wall Street Journal eagerly highlight stories potentially damaging to Trump, sometimes embracing sensationalism as seen with the disputed decades-old birthday letter. Conversely, there is a notable lack of coverage on the failures, contradictions, and negligence of the previous administration, which oversaw years of obstruction and cover-ups in the Epstein case. This double standard erodes public trust. The core issue extends beyond any single individual or party. It concerns a political class and a federal bureaucracy that are unaccountable, self-protective, and increasingly resistant to scrutiny. Calls for an independent investigation are routinely dismissed, while entrenched interests manipulate the process in secrecy. Americans are left with a justice system that seems to serve the elite rather than the public. This is why many Americans are losing faith in these institutions. Without a full, unredacted disclosure concerning every individual involved, regardless of their political or global affiliations, the cloud of suspicion will only thicken. The selective outrage, partisan grandstanding, and endless legal maneuvering fail to address the fundamental corruption. They merely reinforce the perception that, in Washington, transparency is merely a tool for damage control.
Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. What's more, the document in question was at one point in possession of the DOJ, or at the very least, it was something reviewed by Department of Justice investigators in their prosecutions of Epstein and/or his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. To be clear, Trump denies having anything to do with the letter. He is suing the Wall Street Journal over this reporting after having threatened to do so. Quoting from the paper, in an interview with the Journal on Tuesday evening, Trump denied writing the letter or drawing the picture.
MSNBC's coverage of the recent Epstein document controversy exemplifies a troubling trend in American media where sensationalism and partisan narratives often overshadow accuracy and objectivity. In the reporting on the so-called bawdy birthday letter allegedly sent by the president to Epstein, MSNBC has treated disputed evidence as fact. Despite the president's strong denial and his lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal for publishing what he claims is a fabricated story, MSNBC presents the letter as an undisputed truth. This represents a significant lapse in journalistic due diligence, misinforming viewers and damaging the overall credibility of the press. Also, MSNBC's coverage lacks balance and objectivity, quickly jumping to conclusions about cover-ups and framing every development as a dire threat to the current administration. This approach minimizes the bipartisan nature of Epstein's connections, including his well-documented relationships with figures like former President Bill Clinton. It also overlooks the previous administration's mishandling of the case, focusing instead on implicating the current White House and skewing the narrative to favor one political side over another. When sourcing in expert opinions, MSNBC often relies on a narrow selection of voices, typically former prosecutors or analysts with apparent partisan biases, rather than consulting truly independent experts. This creates an echo chamber where speculation and innuendo are amplified without adequate scrutiny, leaving viewers with a skewed perception of the facts. Visually, MSNBC excels in creating a dramatic and urgent atmosphere through the use of graphics, split screens, and selective video clips, which tend to emphasize style over substance. These techniques aimed at provoking outrage and suspicion often overshadow important context, such as the extensive redactions in DOJ document releases or the ongoing dispute over the letter's authenticity. MSNBC could enhance its reporting by adhering to rigorous fact-checking standards and presenting allegations for what they are, not established facts. Balanced coverage that acknowledges the roles of both political parties, a broader range of expert opinions, and a focus on context and transparency over sensationalism would also contribute to more informed and less biased reporting. The American public deserves media that explores all sides of a story, especially in scandals involving elite networks and potential abuses of power. The selective outrage currently displayed protects certain interests and fosters distrust in the media and justice system. A call for the full, unredacted disclosure of all Epstein-related files is crucial, and until this is addressed, skepticism towards media motives and federal agencies remains both justified and necessary.
The DOJ was tasked with vetting Epstein materials for mentions of the President Donald Trump, his buddy of 15 years, who said that Jeffrey Epstein liked young women. And then subsequently, a decision was made not to release any more information on Epstein. Now, the Wall Street Journal makes clear that we don't know if this letter bearing Trump's signature, previously reviewed by the Department of Justice, was among the documents reviewed by this administration, right? That, like, some FBI agent was like, whoa, gosh, you got to see this, and flagged it. But if it was, and again, that seems plausible if it's in the record, it's hard not to see why they might come to the decision to just shut the whole Epstein thing down.
The financial ramifications of the DOJ's selective handling of the Epstein case extend well beyond mere headlines and political drama. When federal agencies allocate massive resources, such as 1,000 agents working around the clock to sift through 100,000 records, yet primarily focus on a single political figure, it raises serious questions about taxpayer value and government accountability. This approach not only diverts skilled personnel from other critical cases, but also leaves Americans questioning whether their tax dollars are promoting justice or merely fueling political theater. For families and small businesses, the costs of these extensive investigations are tangible. Every dollar funneled into politically charged document reviews is a dollar not spent on vital community needs like local infrastructure, education, or public safety. The DOJ's promise of transparency falls short when it only produces heavily redacted documents, burdening the public with the cost of a process that breeds more suspicion than answers. The ambiguity surrounding the findings, particularly the infamous birthday letter mentioned in the Wall Street Journal lawsuit, only amplifies the perception that resources are wasted on spectacle rather than substance. The drama and uncertainty these disclosures generate have broader economic implications, affecting both Wall Street and Main Street. Market instability often follows political upheaval in Washington, with potential scandals or high-profile lawsuits making investors nervous. This can diminish investor confidence, affecting retirement accounts and consumer spending. The contentious legal battle between the administration and the Wall Street Journal, which involves claims for tens of billions in damages, underscores how media narratives and political conflicts can have tangible economic impacts. In the corporate world, legal and compliance costs escalate as high-profile investigations linger unresolved. Financial institutions, already grappling with regulatory uncertainties, must allocate more resources to manage political risks. This burden trickles down to consumers through higher fees and stricter lending standards. Over time, persistent government dysfunction and partisan targeting erode trust in American institutions, a trust that is crucial for stable markets and economic growth. The takeaway for households is clear. When political maneuvering overshadows genuine reform in Washington, it's the average citizen who bears the cost. The failure to provide complete, unredacted access to Epstein-related files, coupled with the selective targeting of specific individuals, erodes trust in both the justice system and the economic landscape. Without genuine transparency and a commitment to equal accountability across all political affiliations, public skepticism remains not only justified but necessary. This leaves us with so many things to consider. Let's be clear. The FBI, which overlooked credible evidence against Jeffrey Epstein for years, suddenly became proactive when President Trump's name surfaced in the records. This isn't law enforcement, it's political targeting. Meanwhile, the media consistently highlights allegations against Republicans and ignores any information that could implicate Democrats or their global allies. The previous administration, led by Biden and Harris, mastered this tactic. They weaponized institutions, obscured the truth, and labeled it democracy. Americans aren't deceived. Justice that is selective is no justice at all. We must question who truly benefits from this charade. Leave your comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's keep holding them accountable. Good day, good evening, and good night.